What immediately tells you that a person has had traumatic childhood past? Why does 90 of this apply to me? I am pretty sure I had a normal childhood. My parents never beat me, I was good in school, my siblings were great. My only real traumatic experiences were getting bullied and separated from my friends in 3. and 4. grade, my neighbor dying of a heart attack at 30 with no real reason. He didn't smoke, drank little and did sports as far as I know. My great-grandparents' natural deaths, they were the first family deaths I experienced, and my uncle, I was very close to dying of a very preventable hiking accident. Does that count as traumatic childhood? I once held a 5-year-old birthday party for my daughter. We had the pinata and it wouldn't break with the kids hitting it with a stick. So my husband grabbed it and tore it apart like the Hulk, to which every child laughed hysterically. Except for one kid who ran to the nearest table and put her fingers in her ears, rocking back and forth, crying and squeezing her eyes shut. I called her mom, and when she got there she was the most apologetic, meek, timid person who looked malnourished and fragile. I wanted to save them both because it's clear there is a monster in their lives. I knew this girl that had a problem moving from one relationship to another, and every guy was the one, or a soulmate or whatever. I'd seen this before. Once she got close, she'd find an excuse to run from it and find someone else. I asked a mutual friend if she had ever been sexually assaulted, maybe in childhood. She got quiet and said things were told to me in confidence. But you are a smart person. My dad used to hit me if I accidentally tripped or hurt myself, like bumped my head or something. He would smack me instantly. Now as a mother, when my kids do that, I can feel something deep inside of me simmer with irrational anger. Like I'm angry or annoyed with them for hurting themselves? Thankfully, instead of hitting my kids, I comfort them and tell them they'll be okay. We don't feel good enough for people and lash out in defense when it's really bad. I push everyone away. I'll go no contact on a heartbeat. On the other extreme, I'll try and win people over even when they're hurting me. In the end, I'll cut them off and be angry with myself. There is so much brain fuckery with trauma. Sometimes, they just flat out tell you. One of my good friends basically had their grooming an essay in their intro to me. It was in Discord though, and it was likely a way to be like, don't be shitty please, because they were new to the channel and Discord is a fucking wasteland, but still. Love them dearly though. Dark humor? Not always, but most of my friends had dark humor. As we grew up and then shared our stories, each of us had parents who were mentally ill or alcoholics. I didn't blend well with the kids who had sweet and attentive parents. Now I do, but that rough childhood set me apart from those types of kids saying sorry all the dang time. I had this one co-worker who wanted to show me her cats, and as she was opening her phone she made a mistake and dialed the wrong passcode number and had to try again, saying sorry, and said she should have used Face ID like normal people. And said sorry again. Then nervous laugh. They have miserable feelings they have to deal with. Envy of kids who have privileges, fear of authority, dread of making a mistake, and hating people who cause pain. They're aware of the darkness in the world. Being treated with kindness is never forgotten. I was with a girl and she was performing oral sex on me. I reached out and then ran my fingers lightly through her hair, but she jerked her head back and had a panicked look on her face for a second that made me think she had been sexually abused in the past. Funny enough, I only took a look at personal trauma fairly recently and now match with a lot of what people are saying visibly. I'm always super sorry about everything even if not my fault. I flinch easily. I mentally kick my own ass constantly and more. I remember once a friend raised her hand toward me to like ruffle my hair or something silly like that, and I jolted backward and flinched off sheer reaction, and she just gave me this sad look, and I almost laughed when I realized what I did. LMFAO. If they go out of their way to keep everyone happy, my mom would fly off the handle at a moment's notice, and I would have to always be hyper aware of where she was at all times and listen for footsteps to see who it was walking around. We don't have a good understanding of peace, so things are either really good for us or really bad. We don't know what it means to be neutral, so we tend to always be on edge and make spontaneous decisions in an attempt to feel something. 2 co-workers grew up very poor, one during the Great Depression, the other on a farm. Both went hungry as children. Our crew would go out for lunch occasionally. You did not want to get between them and a buffet table. Seriously, I read somewhere once that your speaking style is aligned to your age when you had your first major trauma. In my experience, women that talk baby talk had pretty fucked up childhoods. Granted, my survey size is pretty small. Crazy dark circles under the eyes. I read a study once, I'll look for it, that the causes are genetics. Do their parents have it? If no, see step 2 or 3. Massive nutrient deficiency. Extreme and prolonged stress, no sense of achievement. If they succeed they are relieved, not proud. Constant awareness and anxiety. Knowing where people are at all times around them. Suddenly being worried by something. It's always their fault. Favorite holiday is Halloween, and it's the only one not centered around family. I'm sure there are PPL who don't have trauma who love it. But I don't know anyone with childhood family trauma that says Christmas is their fave. When you're overly self-reliant. As in, you are used to not trusting anyone to help you or trust that something will end up right or safely for you, so there's a hyper-excessive need not to depend on anyone else. Jumping out of their skin over simple things, such as saying hello. An aversion to accepting help, even when needed. Extremely insular behaviors, including making excuses for everything their parent does says. Someone who is a people pleaser, someone who doesn't set boundaries, someone who goes from hot to cold easily, elevated anxiety, fear of intimacy in relationships. Just look up fearful avoidant attachment. I hardly have any friends, and when I get them, I tend to push them away. I am super scared of abandonment, and it's easier to not make friends, because then they can't leave. That is tough to deal with. Constant awareness of their surroundings and the people around them, and always assuming that people want to kill, hurt, betray their trust, and keeping people at arm's length, truly trusting no one, etc. They pick up on vibes of other people. Like all of the little micro movements people make, tone inflections, being able to identify someone based on the sound of how they walk, etc. Difficulty to make eye contact. I know this is present in people with autism too, but I've never met someone with a fucked up childhood who could make eye contact. Including myself. Being afraid to want something or be excited for something cause we expect it to fall through or be taken from us, and then we will just be embarrassed for having gotten our hopes up. Won't admit to caring about anything or having hobbies, etc. They know as soon as they do, they will be teased relentlessly, or the thing they like will be taken away as punishment. They seem more aware of their surroundings and the people around them. This either manifests as them being extremely empathetic or extremely closed off as a defense mechanism. They often are extremely empathetic, always make sure no one is left out, forgotten about, and don't tolerate negative talk about others. These people have been to therapy. I sometimes have what I call Harry Potter syndrome, where anything is either the biggest deal in the world or doesn't matter to me at all, and it's not rational. When they don't take anything seriously. I had a friend that did that. Come to find out after a few tequila shots some pretty dark shit about their past. Urge to cry when it comes to expressing emotions and feelings, which seems like a huge difficulty, especially when trying not to upset the other person. Always apologizing for things, even if it's beyond their control. As well as being hyper aware of the current mood of the room or a particular person. Always looking to find the path of least resistance in an uncomfortable situation or in a conflict, afraid to actually deal with the real problem. Tends to flinch. Always aware of their surroundings, quiet and withdrawn, scared to speak up in stressful situations. Avoids conflict or fights. When they suddenly seem unusually scared or vigilant around a certain type of person, even though they have never met that person before. They lack confidence and self-esteem, have no drive or desire to better their situations, usually depending on some kind of substance. They can never make a decision because they're scared of always choosing the wrong one. If they can't decide, they can't be wrong. They talk about themselves in the most degrading way, and constantly apologize over trivial stuff even if it wasn't their fault. Always thinking the worst case scenario. Resource hoarding. Making jokes about trauma-related things. I could go on and on. Sexual promiscuity. Throwing their love around, not trusting people or backstabbing friends. There's a bunch of things. When something good happens to them, like a promotion or something romance-related, they get worried instead of happy. If they're under 25, the person themselves will tell you within an hour of meeting them a surprising amount of the time. They treat compliments like you're lying to them. Bounces off like rubber. When it doesn't bounce off they cry. Breaking down when given praise, or not knowing how to respond to it. Apologizing for everything. People pleaser. Series of bad relationships. We choose the worst people to be in our circle because abusers feel familiar to us. Put a finger down if I don't have enough hands for this. ETA seeing myself in a low ood of these replies. I apologize too much, and I don't trust people, even people I love. Always on guard. I am so tired. Insanely independent. They've learned not to trust anyone to help them, so do everything themselves. They have severe social anxiety, apologize for things they shouldn't, cannot function as an adult when they take a liking to me. For some reason, broken people always tend to gravitate towards me. Apologize for everything. Shut down when people get angry. Try to be as non-existent as possible. I mean, I have scars, so I think that gives it away before I even get to know someone's name. Grimacing face. Visibly anxious anytime someone near them is even the slightest bit upset, angry, or frustrated. In a way it's a lot to type out. But I am the sole reason why my support no longer has a mom. They're over the age of 20 and still breathing. This whole life is a slow rolling trauma. Having two childhoods. One that they tell everyone happened, and the other that was real. Lack of trust. Risky behaviors. Staying in limerence of toxic and abusive relationships. Constant anxiety, hypervigilance. Too afraid to be alone or too comfortable being alone. Difficult at being intimate close to others, which manifests in being chronically single. Apologizing when it's not needed, not speaking their mind, avoids eye contact, etc. Dislike any kind of attention from a large group of people. Negative or positive. When they over-sexualize themselves yet infantilize themselves at the same time. Immediately vibe with me. I believe our demons even feel a kinship, someone who rarely shares what happens at home or talk about their family. I used to flinch when people went in for a high five, so that's one thing. Well, in my case, I'm 63 and still single. Probably going to die single. Quiet nature, constantly apologizing for anything, not accepting praise. People who can be alone all the time and never get bored of themselves. We hate holidays, especially Christmas. Edit change they to we. Commitment issues in any spectrum. Relationships, friendships, work. Never being comfortable with compliments, achievements or attention. Parents are alive and they don't have a good relationship with them.